to one of our top stories. The CEO of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC Ghana, Duncan Amoam, is raising concerns about government's decision to maintain the chief executive of the National Petroleum Authority, Hassan Tampuli, despite him being a member of Parliament for the Gushegu constituency. According to Duncan of COPEC, he cited correspondence from Hassan Tampuli to the NPA despite his new role as the Member of Parliament. Duncan argues that this breaches the corporate governance laws of public institutions and might be a severe matter of conflict of interest. Duncan Amoam joins us via phone. So, Duncan, we're grateful that you joined us. First of all, you're requesting for a new CEO of the NPA. You say that Hassan Tampuli has no legal ground for holding this particular position. Expatiate your argument proper.
Now, let me say good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your viewers. We are minded by precedent. We are also minded by good governance, especially in our energy establishments or institutions. You recall that before 2020 elections, the then CEO substantive, Mr. Hassan Tampuli, decided to contest as a member of Parliament. One would have expected that he would have resigned to contest that public office, but that was not done. Then, thankfully, he wins and gets sworn in as a representative of the people of Gushegu. The expectation again would have been that he would have given way to another person to also start working in the interest of Ghanaians so that he could focus a lot more on his new role as a parliamentarian representing Gushegu. We say this on the back of the fact that conflict of interest situations would somehow abound. If you look at the fact that NPA would definitely work as a government institution, and where answers are needed by parliamentarians, you would expect the CEO to be in a hurry to provide these answers. If the same CEO doubles as an MP, without necessarily going to the committee on members, on members of Parliament engaged in profit business, then there's probably some breach there. If we indeed would have to keep Mr. Tampuli in office, the NPA board, then he would necessarily have to go back to Parliament to obtain permission, which expressly are checks from the Committee on Members engaged in business has not been done. And so you wonder on what basis we still continue to have him hold board meetings, sign official correspondence of the authority, whereas he has now moved on to become the Member of Parliament. This is just a matter of precedent, and if we are not careful, the precedent being that could become a very dangerous one for our corporate governance institutions within the country in the days ahead.
Well, but Duncan, we do know that some ministers of state hold positions within the ministry, despite the fact that they're even members of Parliament. We've had the Speaker of Parliament raise concerns over this matter. But as it stands now, one could argue, is this a matter of the law or a matter of moral standing?
One, you are dealing with precedent, you are dealing with conventions, and then you are dealing with legality. We have cited issues of conflict of interest. One, if you maintain a position as the substantive CEO for NPA, that attracts a certain income. And then being a parliamentarian also attracts a certain income. And so if an individual is receiving double pay from, our public salary structure, that clearly is a conflict of interest situation, because even for parliamentarians who get appointed as ministers, they have to forfeit or forgo one of these incomes. And so,
but do we have on record the fact that, because we do not have on record if indeed these members of Parliament and even ministers who double as ministers forfeited aspects of their salaries in that regard?
In fact, that is the law. And if anybody doesn't, they breach the law. And so it cannot be that they forfeit or they don't forfeit. The law says if you become an MP and then you get appointed as a minister, you definitely take just one salary. And that is why in recent times we've even had a situation where we discussed some MPs that also had, a second salary, and that was a huge, public discourse. We are saying that indeed, once you cross to become the MP representing a certain constituency, also having an oversight duty and responsibility as a parliamentarian over these governmental institutions and agencies. The most you could probably be appointed to is a board position that also becomes more or less a policy directive oversight position. But as substantive CEO, we do think that it breaches every aspect of the law, especially on conflict of interest matters, especially also on the fact that if the authority is to end up paying any incomes to the CEO, he will be getting double salaries, which is also not allowed in public governance systems. And so we think that if you took away the personality, these are precedents that we do not want set. And so the appointing authority should do well in earnest to appoint somebody substantive to work, as opposed to having an individual who owes Parliament a duty to work and also owning himself up as a CEO of a public enterprise, as important as the NPA. We think that these precedents would need to be checked so that in the future it doesn't then become a norm for people to get to Parliament. It will get to a point where all 275 members of Parliament would go on looking for CEO jobs, and you get to Parliament and there's nobody there to legislate.
Have you forwarded your concern to the rightful authorities?
I do believe that we continue to engage every authority necessary, and as these public discourses also drag, some way, somehow, we draw their attention to the fact that the right things would need to be done, and done immediately.